Hi all, welcome to Fox 10 News Now, the 6:30 to 9 edition. Let's go ahead and take a look at our Fox 10 Facebook update for kind of an overview of today's headlines.
I'm Carrie Lake with a look at your Fox 10 Facebook news update. A fired state employee naked and handcuffed outside of his North Phoenix home, and only Fox 10 cameras were there as he was arrested. He's accused of embezzling at least $1.5 million from the state of Arizona as early as 2006. Deputies took him into custody during an MCSO raid at 2 locations. In a statement, Governor Doug Ducey said, quote, "Let this be a wake-up call to any state employee who tries to cheat the system and exploit our taxpayers for personal gain. Not on our watch." 2 teenagers apparently picked the wrong home to break into in the Santan Valley. They were stopped by the homeowner on Saturday, who was armed with a sword. He kept a 15-year-old from leaving. Deputies took that teen into custody, and they later found a 16-year-old with items taken from the home. DPS investigators say they've gotten dozens of tips about 4 vehicles shot at Saturday and Monday along I-10, the agency working to develop leads on the person responsible. Tips can be made through the DPS website. The National Weather Service saying we could be in for more storm activity tonight and tomorrow following that severe storm that caused so much damage on Monday and has left people still without power. And be sure to follow us on social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and send us your photos and videos using the hashtag Fox10Phoenix. Have a great day.
And I see some of your comments in the chat room. This is going to be the best show ever. You're absolutely right, and I greatly appreciate your enthusiasm. However, those topics that I mentioned, right, you're probably seeing them at the bottom of your screen. Website that helps you fake a pregnancy and kid hacks mom and dad's phone, to where whenever she types in no, it says hell yeah. Those are going to be topics that we discuss with Troy Hayden, who's going to be coming up after his lunch break. So he jumps off the 6 o'clock show, heads to lunch, and fantastico. Hi, Joe Foley. So after he is done with lunch, he's going to come back and we're going to discuss that story. So that gives you something to look forward to. I do have the John Kasich event that just happened. This is a town hall, another GOP candidate. I'm going to play that for you now. And hopefully, I also have a Washington press conference on, well, it's an interesting story we'll get into later, but I'll head into John Kasich and look forward to Troy Hayden. We're going to talk about those topics below with Troy. I also know Mark Malrich promised me some of his time, so we're going to get to spend some time with him tonight too. Maybe see a little bit of Richard Sands and Jude LaCava too. You never know. It's one of those nights. So let's head over and watch John Kasich, the John Kasich event right now.
7 menfolk who went into World War II. And as the wife of a D-Day veteran, the mother of a Desert Storm and Iraqi Freedom veteran, and the grandmother of a new Marine this next September, I welcome you with all my heart.
Come on, kids, stand up.
That's right. There's a Marine behind him, too. But anyway, let's give a big New London, Kearsarge, Sunapee welcome to Governor John Kasich.
Thank you. That's just a beautiful flag, isn't it? It's just a gorgeous flag. And, you know, in light of all the sacrifice that had been done by so many people throughout our history, right, and throughout our recent history, as was just pointed out, I want you to think about something today. You know, I got up yesterday and I was kind of reflecting on the mood that we seem to be in this country. And, you know, it's a mood that reflects some legitimate things. You know, I lost my job. My kids have big college debt. We've got a problem with drugs. Okay, recognizing all of that and thinking about the sacrifice and looking at our flag, we got to start counting our blessings that we live in the United States of America, okay? The reason I say that is, look, it's always easy to kind of like fall into a bad mood, but what I found throughout my lifetime, when people are in a good mood, working together to solve problems and recognize the blessings that they have, we do a lot better than we approach everything with a heavy heart and downtrodden and woe is us. You know, we've been through world wars, depression, 9/11. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And so now we have challenges, and we're constantly pummeled with all the bad things in our country. But where else would we want to live? You know, where else do we have the freedom to say whatever we want? Somebody could walk right in here and rip the living daylights out and walk out and be free as a bird, right? That's America, free speech. You get sick? I'll tell you where I want to get sick if I do. I want to get sick in America, not in some other country. Our education, you know, I just was up, my mother-in-law, God bless her, is a graduate of Colby Sawyer College, and I went there. And I don't know if she'd forgive me for this. She had a great time there, and she told her daughters, my wife and her sister, that she went to Colby Sawyer College and got her ASS degree. Associate of whatever it was at the time. My wife's going to kill me. Please don't report that on TV tonight, okay? But you think about the opportunities, and my father carried mail on his back. His father was a coal miner. One of my uncles was at Iwo Jima. My other uncles worked in steel mills, and they would work a lifetime, and the mills would close, and they wouldn't get their pension. My Uncle George has told me. My Uncle George was an infantry officer, also a guidance counselor for 39 years. My mother, her mom, lived with us off and on, could barely speak English. And their kid is running for president of the United States and has a really good chance to win. Now, that's America, okay? So, I think it's important that we point that out. A little bit about me. I grew up in a little blue-collar town, almost all Democrat. I told you what my dad did. My mother never got a degree because her mother was Croatian and an immigrant, and they just didn't happen then. And my mother was very smart. And if the wind blew the wrong way, people found themselves out of work. I mean, it's just the way it was. So when we talk today about anxieties that people have, I grew up in a community where there were anxieties every day. And a couple of lessons I learned, my mother and father always told me, leave the place a little bit better for the fact that you were there. And secondly, stick up for people who don't have a voice. People who are the underdogs, and that's the way I've always lived my life. And in politics, just because somebody's got money or rich or big or important or a big title, it's great, I can respect you, but you don't call the tune for me. That's just not the way it's going to work. And but I left that little town to go to a small little school, just slightly bigger than Colby Sawyer, called Ohio State University. And when I went to the school, I just ran into some of the sweetest co-eds over there, and I asked them, who are your roommates? Well, I have one, and I had 15 college roommates, and I lived in a big tower, and things happened, and I wasn't all that happy, and my Uncle Emil always said, John, if you want to change something, start at the top. So I called the president's office, and they wouldn't let me in, but I kept at it, and they finally let me in, and I went in to see the president, and he was impressive, and he had a big office and nice rugs and beautiful furniture, and so I went in and I looked at him and lodged my concerns, and then I looked at him and said, sir, I've been in school about a month, and I'm undecided, but when I look at all these things you have here, maybe this is the job for me, you know. What exactly do you do? And so he told me about his responsibilities, and he told me the next day he was going to go down and see President Nixon. And I looked at him and said, look, there's a number of things that I would like to talk to him about also. Could I go with you? And he said, no, you can't. And but I got him to agree to carry a letter for me to the president because I knew that the president would get it. So I went back to my dorm room. He said I could do that. And I wrote basically a letter inviting myself to the White House. And so a couple weeks later, I get a letter back from the office of the president, the White House. I call home, and my mother answers the phone, and I said, Mom, I'm going to need an airline ticket. The President of the United States would like to have a meeting with me in the Oval Office. And my mother is shouting, honey, pick up the phone, because there's something really wrong with Johnny, okay? So they sent me to Washington. Honest to goodness, true story. Sent me to Washington. I go through the security and get through the gates, and I'm sitting right outside the Oval Office, and the guy walked up to me and he said, you're going to get 5 minutes alone with the President of the United States. I'm 18 years old. What do you think? Wow. Who said wow? Yeah, wow, right? Really unbelievable. Well, I'll tell you what I'm thinking. I've got a new jacket, a new shirt, a new tie, and new pants. I'm not coming out in 5 lousy minutes. You're out of luck. I mean, 5 minutes. What can you do in 5 minutes? So they open up the door, and the president greets me, and I say hello to him, and we sit at his desk, and I spend 20 minutes alone with the president as an 18-year-old first-quarter freshman. And the bad news is I spent 18 years in Congress, and if you add up all the time I spent in the Oval Office, I peaked out at the age of 18. Okay? Become a professor at Colby Sawyer maybe was what I should have done. So my life has been a life of lightning strikes. That happened, and then I got a job in Washington, which was a complete happenstance. I got hired in the legislature, another happenstance. In 1976, I went to the Republican convention because one of the bosses I had was working in the Reagan Brain Trust trying to win the convention, and I walked in the door and somebody didn't show up, and they asked me, the biggest Reagan people asked me, could you manage 5 states for Governor Reagan? I had no idea what it meant, but I said, of course I could. And so I got to work with him and be with him in the car, and it was great. And then I went back home and I ran for the state senate. I knew nobody. And you know who got me in? You, and you. You did coffees in your house, you invited your neighbors in, and for some reason, some spark happened, and at 26, I was a member of the Ohio Senate, represented about 350,000 people, complete upset, unbelievable, and then 4 years later, I ran for Congress, and I was the only Republican to defeat an incumbent Democrat in America, and I ran on the Reagan platform of tax cuts and smaller government, and as he used to say in regard to the Soviet Union, we win, they lose. I subscribe to that. And so I went to Washington, and for my first 6 years, I served on the Defense Committee, which was remarkable. And in the early days, I was one of the people that found the hammers and the screwdrivers and the wrenches that cost tens of thousands of dollars. So I became a military reformer, a strong supporter of the military, but no waste anywhere is acceptable. And then 6 years into my congressional term, I got on the Budget Committee. And in my first year, I wrote my own budget for America. Why'd that happen? I was at home complaining about the Budget Committee, and a guy walked around the gas pump where I was pumping gas into my Jeep, and he says, I'm listening to you complain, and you don't think things are very good, so what are you going to do about it? So I flew down to Washington, called my staff in, and I said, we're going to write a budget for the United States of America. They said, but we only have 6 people. They have 100 down at the White House and many up on Capitol Hill, and we've got 6. And I said, well, I know we're overstaffed, but if we stay out of each other's way. So that year, the vote on the Kasich budget was 405 no and 29 yes. 405 against me and 29 for me. How's that sound? Huh? What'd you think? You thought it sounded pretty good? So did I. Because I had 29 other people that wanted me to run the country. So I was just getting started. And year after year, I believe we should balance budgets because we don't have the right to put that kid in debt because we're living high on the hog, and it hurts our economy, and I just don't think you should be ringing up debt. You got to manage yourself the right way. That's what my parents always told me. And, you know, when you have debt, you're on somebody else's thumb. So I always kind of practiced that. And then after a long, long period of time, 10 years of my life, I was one of the chief architects of balancing the federal budget. And it was the first time we had done it since man walked on the moon. And we haven't done it since, okay? And the economy was doing great, and we actually had a $5 trillion surplus in Washington. Now, that's not a movie. That's really a true story. And then I left for 10 years, and I went out and I worked at Lehman Brothers and traveled the country trying to help companies to grow. I learned a ton. I worked, you will remember, at Fox News, where I was a giant television star. You all remember how good I was. And I did a bunch of other things. And then here's the thing. I say this everywhere I go. You know, the media used to say I'm not disciplined and stick to a script, but, you know, I'm talking here, I feel like I'm saying the same thing, which I've said so many times, but I want to tell you. I believe that the Lord has a purpose for each of us, okay? And I believe... Now, you don't have to think the way that I do. If you're a humanist and your job is to better mankind, I'm all for you. But for me, I think that we are handed special blessings to do what we were carved to do the day we were born. And I think the sooner we figure out what that is, the more satisfaction we have in our lives. And I felt called back into politics. I mean, I'd been out for 10 glorious years, and I loved it. But I thought I could fix Ohio. So I went back to Ohio and ran against an incumbent, and I won that race. It was the first time that a person had defeated an incumbent in Ohio in 36 years. And I had never run statewide before. And Ohio's a big state. We have 11.5 million people. The last time somebody who had never been on the ballot in the state of Ohio beat an incumbent was 96 years earlier. And I just wish I would have waited 4 more, because it would have been a cool 100 to say. And then I went in. The state was in bad shape. A lot of people out of work, big deficits and everything. Put our shoulders to the wheel, build a great team, and today we're running a $2 billion surplus from an $8 billion hole. We're up well over 300,000 jobs. Our credit is strong, and nobody gets left behind. Now, I had a reporter with me earlier. She says, you don't talk as much. I say, I talk about it all the time. If you're drug addicted, we're going to treat you. We want to rehab you so you don't spend your life in prison or in addiction. It's not easy to fix this, but we're working at it, and we're treating people to get them on their feet. It's either jail or treatment and a decent life, and I don't think we ought to flush human potential down the drain. If you have mental illness, we're going to help you. Some people have such severe mental illness that we haven't figured out how to beat it yet. But there's a lot of people that have mental illness that can be restored. With the proper medication and the discipline and the supervision, they can be okay. Anybody in here ever seen anybody who's got those problems, huh? Well, I don't think they ought to be ignored. And then the working poor spend a lot of their time in emergency rooms where we all pay. I'd like them to get some health care so they're not in the emergency room, sicker and more expensive. If you're developmentally disabled, we want to mainstream you. If you're autistic, we want the family to be able to have insurance to pay for their bills. I mean, it's a tough situation, and it can cause such financial strain that it can cause really serious problems at home. If you're in the minority community, we want you to have entrepreneurship. We want you to feel like you've got a place in Ohio and a place in America. So we had an election, and I won by a lot. And it was really cool. And then I went out promoting a balanced budget amendment to the Constitution, and people kept saying, why don't you run for president? And after they said it enough, I kind of got tired of hearing it, so I decided to run. And so now I'm here today. And if I could win, I'd like to do basically 3 things. We got to get the economy going again. And that requires a balanced budget and bringing some of the corporate profits back from Europe to the United States so we can invest here. It means more incentives for businesses to give workers tools so they can be more productive and have higher wages. It means deregulating, so we're not regulating particularly small businesses to death because they create the jobs. And then we have to rebuild our military, and we have to reform the Pentagon so that when we put money there, it's spent wisely. And then finally, citizenship. You know, we have to begin to realize that, I hate to sound like a preacher here, but we have to live a life that's bigger than just about ourselves. And we have to be centers, in my opinion, of justice and healing. A lot of people are, but there's a lot of people who've checked out. If we're going to build a stronger America, let me ask you a question. Do you think that you're going to have a stronger community here because somebody's president? I mean, the president can help, can set the tone, can provide some leadership, but do you believe that? Who's going to build a stronger community here? Who? Exactly. We worry about drugs. How many kids have you told, kid, you stay off the drugs? Well, sir, I don't even know you. I said, doesn't matter whether you know me. You stay away from drugs. How many people do we mentor and give them a pat on the back? How many widows do we visit to say, I hope you're not all alone? Isn't that part of what we're supposed to do? Frankly, it's why I'm running for president. I'm running for president because
No, I
it's what I'm
apologize
supposed
for
to do.
interrupting, but I am getting a live video feed, it looks like, from President Obama, which I wasn't made aware of. Let's see what this is.
The pioneering, independent spirit of America. It's something that we're very proud of as Americans. But what's clear is that up here it's not just a spirit, it's not just a slogan, it's a way of life. You know, and it is out of necessity. You've got to be self-reliant up here. You can't just drive down to the shopping mall to get what you need. Help, if you need it, is a long way away. This far north, everybody has to look out for each other. And even with all those efforts, there's poverty, and it can be harsh. And that means that you depend on each other. It makes family and community and tradition all the more important. Now, I grew up in Hawaii, which obviously the weather is a little different. But there's a similarity, what's called the aloha spirit there. And I know you have the same spirit here, the notion that we're all in this together. And that's all the more profound in a place above the Arctic Circle. We know that Alaska is big. And sometimes I have to describe for people in the lower 48, if you dropped it on the lower 48, it would stretch from Florida to California, from the Dakotas to Texas. That's how big it is. So the people of Alaska can be just as different as all the differences that exist across America. But even though we all look different and come from different places and believe in different things, we all stand united around some similar values. We all want a chance at opportunity. We all want to be able to pass down our traditions and our culture and our language to our kids. We all want the same chance at the American dream as everybody else. We believe that every community deserves access to great jobs. And that's why, to boost commerce in the Arctic and to maintain America's status as an Arctic power, we've called for the accelerated replacement of the Coast Guard's heavy-duty icebreaker. And we're planning for construction of more icebreakers. And I'm urging Congress to make sure we've got the resources to do this. To boost tourism, I'm asking Congress to speed up maintenance and modernization of our national parks in time for the centennial next year, including right here in Alaska. We believe every child deserves a shot at a great education. One of the initiatives I'm proudest of is something we call Connect Ed, and it's a program we started to close technology gaps in our schools and connect 99% of America's students to high-speed internet by the year 2018. And if you want to see the difference this can make in a child's life, look at Nanwalik on Alaska's southern coast. It is remote, like a lot of Alaskan communities. You can only get there by boat or by plane. But today, with the help of Apple, all 80 of its students, most of whom are Alaska natives, now learn in classrooms with fast internet and iPads and digital content. Most of these kids don't have internet at home, but in the classroom, they've got the tools to compete with any child around the world. And I know you're taking advantage of this program here in Kotzebue with wireless internet and 3D printing, and that's great, because that's what we want for all these kids. We want nothing less than the best. And as president, one of the reasons I'm here is to tell you that I'm behind those efforts. I want to make sure these young people know we care about them, and we're fighting for them. You know, we believe every American deserves access to quality, affordable health care. And since I signed the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare, we signed it 5.5 years ago. Since then, 6 Americans have gotten covered. More than 18,000 Alaskans have been able to purchase private plans through healthcare.gov. Thanks to the leadership of Governor Walker and Lieutenant Governor Malat, 18,000 are projected to gain access to health insurance under Medicaid next year. So we appreciate that. And that means more Alaskans can get things like mammograms and physicals. And it means fewer Alaskans will go broke just because they get sick. It'll save this state an estimated $20 million in costs of care for people who can't afford to pay it. So it's going to make a difference. We also believe in being good stewards of our land and our planet for the next generation. And that's what I want to spend the rest of my time talking about. One of the reasons I came up here is to really focus on what is probably the biggest challenge our planet faces. If there's one thing that threatens opportunity and prosperity for everybody, wherever we live, it's the threat of climate. I don't need to tell people here in Alaska what's happening. Over the past few years, I've been trying to make the rest of the country more aware of a changing climate, but you're already living it. You've got longer, more dangerous fire seasons in Alaska, thawing permafrost that threatens homes and infrastructure, faster glacier melt, rising seas, melting sea ice that contributes to some of the fastest coastal erosion in the world. I met Alaska natives whose way of life that they practiced for centuries is in danger of slipping away. You know, on Monday, one Alaska Native woman told me she doesn't want her way of life to go on the endangered species list. And I've talked to folks whose villages are literally in danger of slipping away. So I flew over the island of Kivalina, which is already receding into the ocean. That's what Millie was talking about. You know, waves sweep across the entire island at times, from one side clear across the other. And for many of those Alaskans, it's no longer a question of if they're going to relocate, but when. And think about it. If another country threatened to wipe out an American town, we'd do everything in our power to protect it. Well, climate change poses the same threat right now. And that's why I care so deeply about this. If we do nothing, temperatures in Alaska are projected to rise between 6 and 12 degrees by the end of the century. That means more melting, more fires, more erosion, more thawing of the permafrost, more warming after that. And it threatens all of us with hardship, not just people. There aren't many other places in America that have to deal with those questions right now, but there will be. And what's happening here is America's wake-up call. It should be the world's wake-up call. And that's why over the past 6 years we've been working to do something about it. We are the #1 producer of oil and gas, but we're transitioning away from energy that creates the carbon that's warming the planet and threatening our health and our environment, and we're going all in on clean, renewable energy sources like wind and solar. And natural resources to be a global leader in this effort. Electricity from 20 times from the sun as we did back in 2008. That's how much progress we've already made. And Alaskans now lead the world in the development of hybrid wind energy systems for remote grids, which help, obviously, villages that aren't hooked up to a big power grid. And you're expanding your solar and biomass resources. Kodiak Island, for example, 99.7% of its electricity sources. Its wind power alone displaces more than 2 million gallons of diesel fuel every year. So people are saving money. A $3 million public-private partnership that will make the island the first in the world to adopt new technology that lets it stabilize and store the energy. And I know you guys have started putting up solar panels and wind turbines around Kotzebue. And because energy costs are pretty severe up here, one of the problems is clean energy projects on fossil jobs.
Well, this is unfortunate. Due to technical difficulties, we do not have a strong connection to President Obama. But people
We've
are
also
talking.
invested in
They're
energy
saying something
efficiency
relevant.
in every imaginable, in our buildings, in our cars, our trucks, our
If I
homes,
can't
our
keep this
appliances.
signal, if this is not strong
And all that
enough, I'm
saves
going to
billions of
switch.
dollars for consumers along the way. So more than 15,000 Alaska homeowners have cut their energy bills by 30% on average. And that saves folks here in Alaska more than $50 million a year. Anchorage became the first city in the world to replace more than a quarter of its roadway lighting with LED lighting. And that saves the city $260,000, cuts its energy consumption from lighting by nearly 10%. The school district replaced its expensive diesel heating and power systems with one fueled by biomass, saved enough money to hire the music teacher and the boiler operator. That's a story. And last month I announced the first set of nationwide standards to end the limitless carbon emissions from our power plants. And that's the most important step we've ever taken on climate change. So, the good news is we've made a lot of progress in the last 6 years. But I'm here to tell you we got to do more. We got to move faster. We're not moving fast enough. And for the sake of our kids, we've got to keep going. America has to lead the world in transitioning to a clean energy economy. Now, as we make this transition, we've also got to take more seriously our obligation to help those communities that are already at risk so that they can become more resilient in the face of climate change. Because some of it we're not going to be able to avoid. The planet's already getting warmer. And so communities are already going to be affected. And that's especially pressing here in Alaska. And that's why today I'm announcing that the will serve as a central coordinator in building what we call climate resilience, helping people adapt. And this is going to cut through bureaucracy and red tape, frees up communities like yours to develop and implement solutions for events like coastal erosion and flooding and permafrost degradation. And the Denali Commission is also committing $2 million to support voluntary relocation efforts for vulnerable rural communities. The Department of Housing and Urban Development is going to consult with Arctic coastal tribes on a nation-to-nation basis on your unique needs. And we're also going to help communities build more resilient infrastructure. You shouldn't wait until disaster strikes. We should see if we can invest in communities before the disaster strikes to prevent it. So today we're announcing more than $17 million in USDA rural water grants for infrastructure projects in remote Alaskan communities, including one right here in Kotzebue. And we're launching a new competition to support cutting-edge energy efficiency solutions. So the Department of Energy is going to offer some technical assistance and advice. If your communities come up with the best strategy for sustainable, efficient energy that's tailored for your community, you're going to get federal support to make your plans a reality. And to help Alaskans better plan for sustainable development, the National Geospatial Agency and the National Science Foundation are leading a public-private collaboration to create the first ever publicly available, high-resolution, satellite-based elevation map of Alaska by next year and the entire Arctic by the year after that, so that we know exactly what's taking place all across this great state. So before we had a conference down in Anchorage, not just with Americans, but from leaders from around the world. And I told them that when it comes to climate change, there is such a thing as being too late. The effects can be irreversible if we don't act. And that moment is almost here. And you know this better than anybody. I want you to know, as your president, I'm here to make sure that you get the support that you need. But we should be optimistic about what can be accomplished, because there's nothing that we can't do if we work together. You know, America is full of dreamers. We push new frontiers by choice. That's what makes us Americans. Whether we live in the Arctic Circle or on the Hawaiian Islands, whether we're in big cities or small towns, people. And our future is only as good as the efforts that we put into it. But when people are determined and hopeful and generous, as the people here in Kotzebue are, it makes me optimistic. It tells me that this country's best days are still ahead. So I want to thank all of you. I especially want to thank the young people for being here today. Thank you, Kotzebue. God bless you. God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
I had to change that lower third because I am not President Barack Obama. We are getting in another live feed currently, and I didn't want to interrupt the president, but we are currently getting a live feed in regards to that Black Hawk Down. I'm going to, I could cut to it, or let me see if there's another way for me to show this to you starting from the beginning. Let me try here. This is me nodding to myself like, this might work. Oh, okay. Since it's currently happening, I'd like to get this to, I'd like to start from the beginning so you don't miss anything. So let's see here. While I try to figure this out, I'm going to send you back to Alaska. Because I think that might be a copyright infringement. So this is that was the president speaking in Alaska, discussing how climate change is affecting Americans. And we are going to go to that press conference out of Colorado. It does not look like it's going to let me play it until it's complete. So maybe we'll stay on the president for a few more minutes until it wraps up in Colorado. You know what else? I did not finish John Kasich, which I apologize for, you know, it's few and far in between these moments where I have multiple things to cut to for you at night. So I am appreciative of the fact that I have options for you. However, I do feel like I'm all over the board right now, so I do apologize. These are live visuals, though, out of Alaska of President Obama. We'll head back over to John Kasich and finish out his town hall from earlier today, and then I'm going to take you to Colorado so that we can recap the Black Hawk Down.
In healing. A lot of people are, but there's a lot of people who've checked out. If we're going to build a stronger America, let me ask you a question. Do you think that you're going to have a stronger community here because somebody's president? I mean, the president can help, can set the tone, can provide some leadership, but do you believe that? Who's going to build a stronger community here? Who? Exactly. We worry about drugs. How many kids have you told, kid, you stay off the drugs? Well, sir, I don't even know you. I said, doesn't matter whether you know me. You stay away from drugs. How many people do we mentor and give them a pat on the back? How many widows do we visit to say, I hope you're not all alone? Isn't that part of what we're supposed to do?
And those are live
Frankly,
visuals
it's
of
why
Obama
I'm
on the
running
left
for
side of your
president.
screen in Alaska.
I'm running for president because it's what I'm supposed to do. I determined that I've got to put myself out there. Maybe I won't win, okay? I'll cry for 10, 15 minutes, but I'll be okay. But I'll tell you this. I want to be a force of positiveness, of unity, and I want to do good in the process of this. And that'll be what I'll give. That's what I can do for my country, what I can do for my neighbors. So strengthen America from the bottom up. Do we have problems? Of course. Can we solve them? There's no doubt about we can solve them, because I was there in part of solving so many problems in our country. So, folks, you don't have to go to church on Sunday after hearing that, I guess. But that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. I'll take some polite applause and then questions, okay? Okay. And you know what? That's not baloney, by the way. I mean that. We have a program in Ohio called Start Talking. In every school, we have teachers standing up and telling kids each week to stay away from drugs. Nancy Reagan was right. Just say no. There's a 50% chance kids won't do drugs if they hear that message. Secondly, we have mentoring programs. We now have businesses that if they'll work with faith-based or value organization can adopt the school. And you go into school and you tell kids what they can be in their lives. And it makes a giant difference in the outcome of lives. You've got to figure out what you want to do right here. So, okay. Yes, sir, right here.
Yeah, I've got a $1 trillion question for you, Governor. But first, thanks for coming. Here it is. This summer, the government began a $1 trillion program of nuclear weapons modernization. Now, in July, I was privileged to have a conversation with Robert Siviak, who handled arms control and nuclear weapons for the first President Bush. He told me that program is completely unnecessary, total waste of money. And he told me further that our present deterrent far exceeds any immediate or foreseeable requirement. So here we go. $1 trillion down the drain with no corresponding improvement in national security or care for service people, like this gentleman over here, and veterans. So as president, what would you do about it?
I don't agree with that gentleman. That'd be one reason I'd have to wonder why Bush picked him. I mean, we have to have a modern nuclear capability. I mean, you have to have that. And secondly, look, you have to look at what the threat is. And, you know, he says we have no threat today. Well, there's all... No, what I'm saying is we don't have any... I said it wrong. That there's nothing out there that threatens us today. Okay, part of what we need to do is to, first of all, have a very strong deterrent. And secondly, the other thing we got to do is anticipate where things are going. So I think there is a needed modernization of the military. And I served on that committee for 18 years. And look, I was a military reformer. There were things, weapon systems that I took on that people weren't happy about, but I didn't think they met the threat. But I think we need a stronger Navy so we can project power around the world. We need to be mobile. We need to be lethal. We need to make sure that our Army is not, the strength of our Army is not reduced too low. We need to make sure that our Army has the technology. My greatest concern is fixing that building where we have almost 900,000 people who are gumming up the works when it comes to procurement. It used to take a relatively short period of time to research and develop and deploy a system, and now it takes over 20 years. Everything it's bureaucratic, it's red tape, and so when we put money into the military, we've got to make sure we're getting what we pay for. So I'd like to see if he has an article or something like that. I'd like to look at it because, you know, my mind is open about it, but I also have a lot of people that I've spoken to about these issues and my own judgment that comes from my experience.
By the way, he has articles, plenty of them. He lives in Lebanon, New Hampshire. You get this, you pick up a phone book, and his phone number and his address are right there.
Okay, but we'll make sure that we take a look at his articles, and then I will follow up on them. How's that? Yes, ma'am.
You have run and kept people together, brought people together. That's one of your strengths. I want to know if and when you become president, how you will help to bring together some of the very divisive things that are going on. I'm concerned particularly about the First Amendment for Christians whose freedom of speech and freedom of religion are being undercut because of various things that are going on around our nation. I would like to see there be a mutual respect between different opinions. And I think that how would you, as a president, help bring that about?
Well, first of all, you know, when you think about divisions, you have to think about Congress because it's become so polarized and so partisan, and even divisions within both parties, you know, and it's very, very hard to get anything done. And when you want to do big things, fix Social Security, fix the immigration problem, any of these things, if you don't have some degree of bipartisanship, it won't happen. Now, people will come here and tell you, well, if we're just tough and we're just pure and we're just this, it'll all work out. It will not. Okay, I was there. I was involved in welfare reform. I was involved in balancing the budget. I was involved in fixing Ohio. If you don't have some sense of people working together, it can't happen. So we've got to work on that from the top. And I told somebody at one of these other events that part of what I want to do is, you know how Trump had those helicopter rides at the fair? I'm going to have Air Force One stationed at Andrews Air Force Base, and I'm going to have a lineup of families, and we're going to get in the plane, fly 2 loops around, land, and then take the next group, okay? So we can build better relations. In all seriousness, it's a president, but it's a speaker, it's a minority leader, it's a Senate majority leader, the Senate minority leader, committee chairman saying, look, we're going to burn if we're standing around here fiddling all day long. This is not acceptable. Just think about the border. I mean, we got to get the fence up, and we got to make sure we know who's coming into this country. But if all you're going to do about fight is what you're going to do, and everybody has their own monopoly on what's right, nothing ever gets done. So that's one thing, and that a tone can be set by a governor, it's set by a president. Now let me say the other thing. We do see some divisions in here where people, you know, you read, but you know what I think? Just don't make a law. Just do not make a law because you see one thing happening. And, you know, it always gets shown to us, this outrageous thing that's happening somewhere or another. Calm. If it becomes a real problem, if people are being put down or their rights are being violated, then you have to look at it. But I don't knee-jerk to just a couple things that I see, as bad as I may think they are. Now, to me, this gets back to what I said earlier about living a life beyond yourself. I mean, there's one thing I think is really important. Treat your neighbor as you want your neighbor to treat you. Now, I don't know that we can't make laws like that, but don't you think tone matters? Don't you think that the way that our leadership and people like you in the community can communicate and be patient, but make your point? That's what I think we need to do in our country. Well, we want to make sure that we have a court that's not making law, but practices judicial restraint. That's kind of what Reagan supported. And in case you haven't figured this out, I kind of like Ronald Reagan. He was really pretty amazing. So I was with President Reagan.
Know that they're about to cut this off. This is not. That wasn't where we wanted to end the video, but our satellite unfortunately abruptly cut out of John Kasich's town hall and cut into something else. So that's where we leave John Kasich. Let's see. Oh, yep. Excuse me. My Castle Rock press conference is done. So let me create this event, or let me create this file. And let's show you that in its entirety now. This is at Castle Rock, Colorado, and this just ended moments ago. And you had to wait for it to complete before I could show it to you in its entirety. So I apologize, but this for not showing it to you live. We were at Obama Live, but this is an update on the Black Hawk Down.
I'm here tonight on behalf of Sheriff Spurlock, who is actually at the scene of this incident that we had occurred earlier today. I plan on giving you a briefing as to what took place. And I'm also going to turn this over then to Lieutenant Colonel Brown of the United States Army, who is also going to speak further with regards to the incident from there. So to begin with, at about 4 o'clock today, the Douglas County Sheriff's Office was notified of a downed aircraft in a remote area of Douglas County around the Rampart Range area. At the same time, we were also notified that two Flight for Life or a Flight for Life and an Air Life helicopter were in the area frantically searching for the crash site. We also had brief information that we had cellular phone contact with one of the occupants of the downed aircraft, which turned a helicopter, and we were trying to communicate with that individual and get coordinates as to where they were. Due to the very, very remote location of where the aircraft went down, our communication was extremely challenging, but due to the efforts of the aircrafts in the air, which shortly also included two more helicopters from Fort Carson that came up to join in the search, they were able to locate the aircraft or the helicopter. Rescue personnel from the Douglas County Sheriff's Office, search and rescue, local fire departments, staff from the Douglas County Sheriff's Office, our deputies were all sent to the location. We all began to hike in to the location, and we were able to make contact with the four occupants of the downed helicopter. All were alive, all had varying degrees of injury, and all were rescued at that point and have been transported to a local hospital where they're being looked at this point. The Douglas County Sheriff's Office will secure the scene until the United States Army can follow their protocols and get incident command up there to look at the crash and determine further what's happened from there. I think at this point it would be good for me to turn this over to Lieutenant Colonel Brown and let him make a statement to you and offer some points from there. So, Lieutenant Colonel.
Thank you, Chief. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming. My name is Lieutenant Colonel Jason Brown. I'm the spokesperson for the 4th Infantry Division in Fort Carson, Colorado. As Chief said, at approximately 4 p.m. today, we had a UH-60 Black Hawk helicopter had an accident, and we had 2 soldiers were injured in that accident. As of now, I can confirm that all 4 aircrew members have been evacuated from the site, and they're being evaluated and treated at Memorial County Hospital. None of their injuries were life-threatening, and I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Chief Johnson and all of the Douglas County Emergency Services on behalf of Major General Ryan Gonzalez, the Commanding General of the 4th Infantry Division and Fort Carson, for their rapid professional response. And we're deeply appreciative of everything you've done to help us. So, pending anything else, I'd like to open this up for any questions that any of you might have.
What caused the plane to go down? We've heard stories there might have been some bad weather in the area at the time. Is that true?
Well, the cause of the accident is still under investigation, and I don't want to speculate as to what caused it. As Chief alluded to earlier, we do have an investigation team on its way to the site to secure the site. We will go through our normal protocols and investigate the cause of the accident, and as those, we'll release more information as it becomes available.
Were there storms in the area at the time, though?
Not to my knowledge.
Can you discuss the extent of the injuries?
I can't discuss the extent of the injuries, but I can say that they're non-life-threatening, and everyone's being treated at Memorial Hospital.
We drove on that road for a bit, and it goes a long ways in. I'm curious to know, off of that road, how far in did you guys have to hike before you were able to locate the helicopter and the 4 people inside?
Chief, could you answer that? You're more familiar with the area.
For our incident command post, we got within about 1.5 miles, and then we were able to even dial that in further to about a 30-minute foot walk into, or hike into, the location of the crash. And so that's where we've kind of centered our operations and centered the recovery of the 4 individuals, and now securing the scene.
Can you talk about what this mission was? I believe this is described as a training flight, but what would be taking place? How long they'd be in the air for? Kind of talk about what this flight was all about.
Right. The aircraft is a UH-60 Black Hawk helicopter. It was from the 4th Combat Aviation Brigade from the 4th Infantry Division. They were conducting standard routine training, and a UH-60 Black Hawk is capable of a number of missions, and that training would have encompassed a lot of things.
Is this a newer copter, an older copter? How often has it been up in the air?
I don't know about this particular airframe, but the UH-60 helicopter has been in the Army for quite some time. It's a very dependable airframe.
Just to clarify, 2 soldiers injured.
There were 2 soldiers injured, 4 total aircrew.
Was the aircraft on its way back? How far into its flight? And when did they realize there were some issues?
The only information we have right now is as Chief said, when we got the call that they had made, the initial call was that they had made a hard landing on the ground, and that was the initial reports that came out around 4 p.m. I don't know whereabouts in their training mission they were, whether they're on their way back or whether they were in the middle of their training. I know that they had returned from Centennial Airport.
So they had returned, to clarify that.
Right, yes. They were somewhere in their training mission. I don't know if they were on their way back or if they were on their way out to a different training site.
Okay, but the aircraft is based at Fort Carson.
Yes, the aircraft is based out of Fort Carson, yes.
And they made a stop sometime during the flight at Centennial Airport?
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
This specific model, from what I understand, had a similar incident happen in Florida a few years back. Are you aware of that?
I'm not aware of that specific incident, no.
Do you know of any history with this particular Black Hawk model, that whether it has had issues like this in the past?
Well, we don't know what caused the accident, so it's kind of hard to speculate about a particular issue, and we don't know what it is yet.
What are the questions you still have? What are the top 3 things you need to answer immediately?
Well, I'm not an investigator. I've never been out on one of those investigation teams, so I don't want to get into it. But our investigations, we do release them to the public, the results of the investigation, and we will release those results when they become available.
Black Hawk broken apart. pictures. Is that correct to say?
I saw the same pictures you did. Yes,
Right.
that's what it appeared.
I saw the same thing you did.
Yes, I think we saw the same picture. Yeah.
So we could say
It looked like it did. Yes.
So it's pretty amazing these guys survived.
I'm sorry.
Pretty amazing they're still alive after this.
The UH-60 is a very crash-worthy aircraft. It's a very safe aircraft, and it's built to withstand an awful lot.
Do you think today's temperatures had anything to do with the crash?
I don't know. I don't want to speculate as to, because I don't know the exact conditions when the accident.
Talk a little bit about the logistics of the investigation. Where the copter, will it be taken out? Where will it go? That type of thing.
Right. Our investigation team is on the way right now, and they will secure tonight. The Douglas County Sheriff Department is securing the accident site for us. We're estimating it's going to take approximately 6 to 7 days to complete investigation at the site and to take the aircraft back to Fort Carson, where it will be investigated further.
Do you know if there was a fire upon impact?
I don't know.
What's the procedure for getting it back to Fort Carson? How do you transport?
That's gonna have to be a decision that's made on the scene. There's a number of ways that we could transport it, whether it's on a truck or to lift it out with a helicopter. I haven't been to the site to see it, but that'll be a decision that's made by the crew.
How often by NTSB or anybody like that? Have a federal agency come in?
I'm sorry, have we?
NTSB or any other federal agency?
To my knowledge, we haven't contacted them yet.
But will they possibly come in? Or?
Yes, they'd possibly be involved.
You said 2 soldiers were injured. All 4 in the hospital, or just 2?
All 4 were evacuated, and to the best of my knowledge, the 2 that were injured are being treated at Memorial Hospital.
How often does it?
Inside the aircraft?
Do you know what time the crews got to them?
Inside the aircraft?
They were inside the aircraft. It took approximately an hour to an hour and a half to get there. I don't know the exact time that the medics out of Flight for Life and Air Life actually got to them. We're still trying to coordinate that from there. I will tell you that it is nice to be able to stand before you and say that at least 4 members of our armed services today are very, very lucky. And I'm sure that we'll have some heroic stories that emerge from this out of the efforts of Air Life and Flight for Life and everyone else that get to them. It was quite a struggle for everyone, including our dispatchers that would have communication with one of the members of the helicopter, and then due to the remote area and the lack of cell phone, then lose that coverage and, not knowing. So it's good to hear that, at least has a happy outcome.
Can you clarify one thing for me? Did you learn about this because of the call from the soldier on board the aircraft, or were you notified in a different way?
I think a lot of information was coming in, and as part of it was, we were hearing for Flight for Life and or Air Life and or their dispatch. We were hearing from someone aboard the downed aircraft, and we were probably hearing from other people in the area too that may have. That's something that we're going to have to sift through and provide to the United States Army as they conduct their investigation. So we'll be looking to give that information to them so that they can talk and see what all was being said.
How often does this sort of aircraft do practice runs over that specific area of the Pike National Forest?
It's one of our normal training areas, and the land is Department of Forestry land, and we have several approved landing zones in the area where we do training.
Would you say daily though? Do they do it on a daily basis?
Probably not daily in that area, but regularly.
Where are the 2 soldiers who were not hurt?
Who are not hurt? I believe they were also taken to Memorial Hospital to be evaluated as well.
So tonight, are they home?
Tonight they will be home with their families, yes.
What's the process for investigation? Has something like this ever happened at Fort Carson where a helicopter is not?
Yeah, she asked if we've had a helicopter accident at Fort Carson before. Yeah, not in recent memory. We haven't had any helicopter crashes with injuries.
Can you break down the crew for us? It's a pilot, a co-pilot, what their assignments might be?
UH-60 flight crew. There's four air crew. There's 2 pilots and two crew chiefs.
Were one of the crew members a woman?
I don't know.
Did miscommunication or confusion of the whereabouts of the aircraft play a factor in finding it?
You want to speak to that?
I don't believe so. I believe everyone was working very quickly to give their coordinates that they had. Very quickly, when the medical helicopters made visual, they gave those coordinates. So, although very fluid at the time, we still had a lot to work from and a lot to dial in as to where they were.
What's the standard procedure if something like this does happen? I know you said that in recent memory you can't remember any crashes before, but when it does happen, what's the protocol?
You know, we take all accidents extremely seriously. So no matter if they're major or minor, we have very strict protocols that we follow. And that investigation team that will go out there will follow those protocols. I don't know them off the top of my head, so I don't want to speculate and run down a list. But I can get that information for you.
J-A-S-O-N?
Yes, JASONBROWN. Yes.
Lieutenant Colonel, right?
Yes, Lieutenant Colonel.
Brown.
BRO. Yes, Brown. Yep. Thank you. All right, and if nobody has any further questions, I would like to finish up and again extend our sincere thanks from Major General Gonzalez and the entire Fort Carson community to the Douglas County Emergency Services, and we truly appreciate everything that our community does for us and helps us in our time of need. Chief.
Any other questions?
Any idea when another update could be available?
I think what we'll do at this point is anything further will come through social media and we'll update that way, but we don't anticipate that there will be anything. Luckily, we have 4 alive crew members who are in pretty good shape. So, and at this point, we will just do whatever we can to provide assistance tonight to the United States Army. And then at very early tomorrow morning, they will take over the investigation and they'll take it from there. Thank you very much.
No, I don't. We don't put a restriction on that.
So it could take about a week for the investigation to get a report.
It'll take much longer.
Okay, let me give you my card. I'd love to get
And that's where that press conference ends, giving us an update on that Black Hawk Down out of Castle Rock, Colorado. Some good news to come out of that incident is that it does sound like all of the men are okay. They wouldn't give us the extent on their injuries, but it does sound like everybody's going to be okay. Some conversations happening in the chat room about how they were surprised that that the men were unharmed, and it sounded like they were going to be okay. Let's see here. Let's while I wait for Troy to come back, hopefully he comes back here soon. Let's watch some local packages. Here's one from Mark Martinez about a app for campus safety here at ASU. Let's watch some of these local packages, though, while we wait for Troy to return and sit down with us.
Communicates by text these days, especially younger people. And now ASU encouraging students to use a new app that allows them to text police directly. Mark Martinez has more.
Thousands of students have already downloaded that free app here on ASU's campus, and ASU PD says this is a great way to mix technology and safety for students.
Sometimes they may not feel comfortable calling the police department. It may be their first interaction with the police department. Maybe texting in would be a way to increase that communication.
ASU Police Sergeant Daniel Macias says the Live Safe app is designed to make it easier and in some cases faster for students to get in touch with police, texting in real time with a dispatcher.
It basically allows you to communicate with the police department and enhances our communication with you.
The app allows users to report tips anonymously if they choose, and they can also send video, pictures, and audio along with it. Another feature called Safe Walk lets students allow a friend or family member to virtually follow them home.
I think that this app is a really good idea, especially with being on campus. My friends have told me a lot of sketchy things that could happen.
It's nice to know that I can tell people where I'm going and they know to be worried if I don't get there.
ASU PD says the app is not meant to take the place of 911, rather to offer students another alternative to texting police if they feel that's a safer alternative. In Tempe, Mark Martinez, Fox 10 News.
Thank you so much to Mark Martinez for that update. It's a cool app. I wish things like that existed when I was just a youngin'. Let's check out some of the aftermath of the storm.
Everybody's kind of assessing the damage from that storm. Linda Williams tweeted out this photo. It was what's left of that huge American flag at the American Legion building at 7th Avenue in Van Buren. And you look, there's only like 4 stripes left on it. The rest of it is just gone. And this is a massive flag. You can see it from a long ways away. Linda Williams live now with more, and the Legion is now asking for some help to replace that flag, Linda.
Troy, as you know, you could see that huge flag for miles. I, along with thousands of other commuters, would see it every morning as we headed into downtown Phoenix. Monday morning, as you said, big storm blew up and it was gone with the wind. The many here at the American Legion, post number 1, just want people to be on the lookout for remnants of Old Glory and bring them here if you find any. 30 feet by 60 feet, it was hard to miss Old Glory as it waved through the good times and mourned the sad times in the country and the state of Arizona. American Legion post number 1 on 7th Avenue had just re-raised the huge flag after a repair 2 weeks ago. Monday night, a monsoon whipped through downtown Phoenix and basically shredded the flag. Just a few stripes were woefully waving by Tuesday morning.
It was kind of sad. We got a crew to bring down what was left, which was only 2 stripes. And the rest of it, we don't know where it is.
Kathy Garcia even went looking in the surrounding neighborhood for remnants.
Asked them if they had heard or seen or if they have any remains of the flag in their yard, their house, or their trees or anything like that, and they all said no.
What's left of the flag will be formally retired in a special ceremony. For now, the flagpole in front of the American Legion remains bare.
I know these people. I love these people here. They're all veterans and they're very heartfelt about their lives and what they do here and everything. And the flag is really important here.
Pogue says the group is now raising $1,400 to replace the flag with one the same size. He says they want the stars and stripes waving again by September 11th. Back out here live, yes, September 11th, of course, being a big day for this country, and they really want Old Glory and all its glory, the same size, to be flying up there. They are scrambling to do a fundraiser to raise money to buy that flag. In the meantime, they say if your flag was tattered or torn or damaged in any way, please feel free to drop it here at the American Legion. They will put it with the remnants of their flag, and then the Honor Guard on a particular date goes through a very interesting step-by-step furniture ceremony to respectfully dispose of the flag. Reporting live from downtown Phoenix, I'm Linda Williams, Fox 10 News.
Thank you, Linda. Hopefully people find the remnants of that flag and are able to kind of give it its
proper. They can get a new one too. That'd be great. For the first time in the history, the Phoenix Zoo is going to be closed for a 3rd straight day now while crews clean up after that recent big storm.
Celeste Rodriguez has the story.
Hi, yes. Take a look at this tree right here near me. I mean, the sheer magnitude of this storm that came in just a couple of days ago, it just completely knocked this tree down. The roots, you can see them here. It is just enormous. I'm going to bring Linda Hardwick in. She's with the Phoenix Zoo. Thanks for your time today, Linda. What took place here?
Right, so we did have that huge storm come in. We have lots of trees down. We've really made a lot of progress since yesterday morning, but we have determined that we will need to remain closed on Thursday just because we have a lot of heavy equipment still moving through the area, and it really will expedite the process to get all of these trees and debris moved up and out of here.
So you guys will be closed tomorrow?
We will. Yes, we will. And as you can see, we still are doing a lot of cleanup. Like I said, we have made a lot of progress over the last day and a half, couple of days, but there still is a lot of work to be done. But we're very thankful because no animals were injured. All of our staff has been doing a great job, remaining very careful in what they're doing here cleaning up.
Yeah, we see a couple of them here, and this is the rhino exhibit. What a scary situation for you guys. You were sharing with me it's the first time in the history of the Phoenix Zoo you've had to close for a few days.
Exactly. To my knowledge, we closed one day last year, but now 3 days in a row is definitely unprecedented. It's not something we've ever had to do. And as a nonprofit, it really kind of hurts us where it counts. So we've actually been really overwhelmed with the outpouring of support that people have been doing and giving to us on our Facebook page as well as phone calls. We've already had people make a $1,000 donation to us for the cleanup efforts, which we really appreciate. We're also encouraging people, if they do want to help, they can use the donate button on our Facebook page. We could also use gift cards. People are asking if they can purchase trees for us. So if anybody has any questions about how they can help, just go ahead and call the Phoenix Zoo or visit our Facebook page or website.
Okay, great, Linda. Thank you for the information. Appreciate it. Let's take one last look at this tree and give you a look at exactly where it came down. Take a look at this fence. You see that? And that's where the tree came down, just completely crushed this fence. So a lot to clean up here at the Phoenix Zoo. And again, check their Facebook page, their website, if you'd like to help, because they could sure need it. I'm Celeste Rodriguez, Fox 10 News.
Your exclusive AccuWeather forecast with Dave Muncy on Fox 10 News.
Looks like they had a new water hazard out there.
Really? You get a free drop.
Brand new lake. Yeah, there you go. Hey, the city, after we clean the air up, looks pretty good. There are some storms out there. They're way down south. We'll look at them in a minute here. 100 degrees, a few clouds. That wind has picked up a little bit out of the north at 12 miles an hour. 49 degrees on the dew point, 18%. On the humidity, temperatures 97 at Deer Valley, 92 up at Cave Creek. We have 100 at Apache Junction, 95 in Chandler, 100 in Glendale right now. So those temps down over yesterday at this time. And yes, you can see we do bring some moisture into the state again today. It is, of course, the monsoon. We look right down here in Phoenix. We don't see much going on. As we back off, we can see that stuff down in the south here kind of working its way slowly up toward the valley. But this stuff is all veering off to the east a little bit. So that's a good sign for us. We do see an advisory for flooding. That'll be in place until 6:45 this evening. And this moisture continues to climb up that eastern border area. It just kind of veers off to the east a little bit. So it's kind of northeasterly, with Phoenix sitting right over here. So as I mentioned, yeah, that's not a bad thing. As we head up north, you can see a little bit of active weather to the north of Flagstaff, up by the Grand Canyon. Over in the Winslow area, some stuff passing through there. And we do have a flood warning up there until 7 o'clock this evening. But all in all, the state not looking too bad tonight. If you are heading off to Hawaii, you may have heard of Jimena and Jimena hurricane. Very powerful. Much more powerful a few days ago than it is today. 104-mile-an-hour winds, and you can see it's heading to the east of the islands, as did Ignacio here. So you're going to break on that one. I believe you're going to miss that. Might get some waves off of that. 101 for the high today. 97 in Scottsdale, 99 in Mesa. We had 100 in Glendale. 103 is the norm. 112 is the record high for the day. Other numbers that we have from around the state: 85 at Prescott, 101 at Gila Bend, 82 at Winslow. Take a look at your normal line. We're down below it here for the next few days, right through the weekend, and then we pop back up. We get close to it, or maybe a degree or two above it. 101 on the high, 84 on the low, 103 and 81 normal high and low, record high 112, record low at 64. big storms down in the Gulf states. That's about the biggest thing across the country, with the exception of the west, where we do have some storms in the northwest as well. 99 degrees tomorrow, 97 degrees on Friday, Saturday 98 degrees. Yeah, the 90s are back, folks, but they're not going to last forever. We get another day out of Sunday, then we're back to 103 on Monday, 105 by next Wednesday. Watch your kids around water.
And guess who just returned from his lunch break? Troy Hayden. He just walked in. He's going to come spend a few minutes with me. He said it's going to take him a few minutes, but he did just walk in, and he agreed to come sit down with us while we are looking at some of this local news. Let's take this. I think is a fascinating story. This was our lead
here in
tonight.
Phoenix takes to social media, threatening to school.
I'm going to rewind it.
16-year-old high school student here in Phoenix takes to social media, threatening to shoot up his high school.
Turns out the plot was a hoax, but it captured the attention of officers in Colorado, showing just how fast information can move online and go viral. The threat was posted on Snapchat by a student at Sierra Linda High School. That's near 67th Avenue and Lower Buckeye Road. Now, the photo then surfaced in North Glen, Colorado. Isn't that amazing? Another state away, where a student showed it to a school resource officer there. Our Steve Kraft has been following the story. He joins us live. Just a hoax?
This is a crazy story, but that's how it is with social media these days. Let me show you, first of all, this school. This is Sierra Linda High School. We are near 67th Avenue and Lower Buckeye in Phoenix. Now, I want to show you the Snapchat post in question. Take a look at it. You will see right here pictures of students in the hallway of Sierra Linda High School with the caption, "Planning the school shooting." And also there was another caption used, "In the office again." Now, the student admitted being involved in this, but told the cops it was just a prank. Now, as you know, police in Colorado got in touch with Phoenix police, who arrested a student for this alleged hoax. They're not telling us who the student is. And this all started when a girl at North Glen High School outside Denver saw the Snapchat post, told her mom, who suggested that she bring it to the attention of the cops. Students here at Sierra Linda are not amused by all this. We talked to some of them today, and here's what they had to say. What do you think of that student calling out the cops?
I say it's the right thing to do, because if I believe if she wouldn't call the cops, we probably wouldn't have been here today.
It's a relief because, you know, I don't want nothing to happen to my school. I mean, it's my senior year.
Now, here's the latest we're hearing from Phoenix police. The student who is responsible for this, according to police, will be looking at one count of creating a hoax. That is a Class 4 felony. So bottom line is threatening to shoot up a school, even if it's a joke, is a very serious situation. Reporting live, Steve Kraft, Fox 10 News.
All right, thank you, Steve. And
Hi guys, I found my buddy Troy Hayden, but
hello.
That was a crazy Snapchat story. That was our lead tonight.
Yeah, I mean, it shows you what social media can do, you know, and that's as we're all experiencing right now online, that you all feel like you're in the same room, but there's somebody in Colorado who saw something weird going on in the little room that they were in, and it ends up being at a high school in Arizona. Thank goodness they said something, but it was a hoax. But you can't be too safe these days.
Not only that, but if you are somebody that messes around on the internet, you need to keep in mind that this stuff can get you into a lot of trouble. And it spreads quickly.
I think most people realize that.
I don't know.
Yeah, most people do. You think you can say, "I'm getting ready to shoot at my school," Snapchat? That's not cool.
No, it's not cool at all.
Right.
I'm just saying I
and
don't know.
People know it's not cool. So that's just I don't know who the kid was, but kids do stupid things.
Yeah, they do. And
Lord knows I did.
No, you didn't. You were a saint.
Sure.
Did you say something in your Facebook video? I played your Facebook video.
Oh, you did?
Well, I played it as you were doing it.
Yeah.
I was simultaneously streaming it.
Oh, that's interesting.
And did you say something about having a mullet?
Well, it was a baby mullet. And this is back. Now, don't look like that.
This is last week.
There was a time when the mullet was kind of happening.
Just the fact that you said something was kind of happening.
And it's hard to believe now, looking back on it, But yeah, the mullet, because we all know what the mullet was. It was business
It
up
was a
front
business in the front and party in the
and
back.
a party in the back. So
So
yeah.
it's like Barry Manilow, Kesha.
Sure, in today's terms. No, it wasn't really a mullet. It was just kind of like, I kind of had the back going long, and it got kind of curly a little bit.
I think I just revisited my Avante Market dinner.
Hey, at the time it was in. This is like, what would it be? Mid-'80s?
It was 2000 and
Early
late.
80s?
2000 and late, as Fergie would say. So I my entire headlines were based on conversations I wanted to have with you today.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
First of all, this was the cutest story I found today. It is a young boy changed his. This is a total. As a dad, you'll be able to appreciate this. A young kid changed it to where whenever his parents would type in "no" in their phone, it changed to "hell yeah." So he'd ask if he could go do something, and so when his mother would respond no, it would auto change to "hell yeah."
On her phone?
On her phone. So I thought that was such a cute story,
I love that.
and I have graphics here that I'll show. Let's put us in the little box up here. But you can see that, hey guys, can I throw a party tomorrow night?
Wait.
Hell yes.
I typed, they're trying to say no.
Wait, I typed hell yes. Really? Hell yes. And this is Dad. Brendan, she's trying to say where that, and I don't even know what that word is, and I'm not going to, further try to figure that out.
Jim, what's going on?
I am saying hell yes. Thanks, you guys are the best. So this is an actual, and what is that called? Is it autocorrect? Is it when you manipulate autocorrect? This boy got into his phone and manipulated that, so whenever his mom typed in no, it would change to hell yes, and so that cracked me up.
That's really funny.
I
love that.
And that's from Daily Mail. His name was Brendan. Reprogrammed his parents' phone so that the word no would autocorrect into different phrases. His baffled parents find themselves saying hell yes. And I don't know what that is, but I think I'm pretty
It's gotta
savvy.
be bitches, right?
Oh, maybe. Oh my God, that's even funnier.
Yeah. Brian, I'm typing. No, where the bitch is at? But, no, that's his dad.
Yeah, that's his dad.
Oh, so his dad, instead of saying no, Brendan, she's trying to say instead of no. It's weird.
That is the funniest thing.
What's going on?
Brendan, he's coming down. He's coming to lay the law down, and he can't figure it out either. Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. Oh, that's so funny. Why would Daily Mail not tell us that was the word though? But that is really funny. It's funnier that Troy Hayden had to tell me what that was.
I'm guessing.
I think you're right.
Well, that was funny.
Yeah. So have Lexi or Ash ever done anything similar?
No.
Other than made you have to clean up after the
No.
TP? Here's a weird one. Here's a website that will help you fake a pregnancy.
Yeah, no, see, this is going to be in our buzz tonight, so I'm glad I'm getting a look at
Guess
this.
who pitched it?
Oh, is it you?
Yes, I love pitching buzz stories.
I find this dark and weird.
The best gag gifts on earth. $10 for a fake ultrasound. Oh no, I think it's
Fakeababy.com. See, they're trying to sell it as a gag gift.
No. I think that they have to market it as a gag gift, because if they market it as what it really is,
What
which
is it really?
I think that this is what girls that have horrible moral compasses are.
Right.
They're trying to trap somebody into something.
Absolutely.
I think that that's what it really is.
Fakebaby.com.
Yeah, fakeababy.com.
And there's a warning. Go back to that. There's a warning against using this for shady stuff.
For entertainment only.
This item has the potential to be used irresponsibly. You agree to use this product for purposes which may be you agree not to use it. It may be illegal or immoral, fraudulent or hurtful to others. This product may be used for fun or for evil, depending solely on the intentions of the user. Give me a break.
Know your victim.
It's designed to be a novelty gag device.
Well, they have to put that, or they'll get a lot. I'm sure a lawyer told them you have to put a disclaimer on here, or you're going to get the pantsuit off of you.
We do not produce or reproduce any real documents, medical or otherwise. Yeah, this is weird.
Isn't that?
It is. And I think I have to comment on it too.
Oh, yeah, well,
Thanks
here.
a lot for that. Nice pitch.
Well, it's an interesting story. Now you just have to, well
Yeah, see that? Need a bun in the oven? Now we can help. You
yeah,
see that?
I don't.
Keep going down.
Don't need, don't want.
How can I get his attention?
Yes,
See,
I'm
look at
telling
this.
you, isn't that crazy?
So
These
they're
girls
totally
do this.
advertising.
Girls do this. Girls are crazy,
See,
Troy.
the guy in the back is totally watching a football game.
Exactly. And what they don't show you is that in his left hand, he's texting the other girl.
I think he's just watching football and just being a guy. Need a bun in the oven? We can help.
No thanks.
Oh, that is so shady.
So shady. That's what you should say, though. You should say, girls be... No, what you should say is where the B word's at. That's what you should say.
That was funny.
That's all I have for
Jim,
you.
what's happening? Son, your mom was trying to say.
You make me laugh so hard I cried. That's really all I had for
good.
you.
That's it?
Those were magical moments.
Do you want to play my Facebook thing again?
Oh, yeah, I'd love to.
That was interesting.
No, it really was. It's
I
exciting
got a
to
lot of good,
it's exciting to
feedback on it.
see you
But then Jeff
put
put
your
on
makeup
there
on.
just before the magic happens, and I would never write that.
Why you are magic.
No, that's just not me. I don't think he liked my thing that I did enough of it. Go out. It's 5 minutes away. All right, hey everybody, just a few minutes before.
Don't ever apologize.
The 5 o'clock newscast. So Jeff, our guru, our media guru, social media. So you can go to my Facebook and comment and ask me a question. I've answered a ton of questions. This is kind of what happens before the newscast. What I do in the last minutes. And I've been getting a hard time from my buddies on here. Some one of them texted me. There's Dave. Because I'm putting my makeup on. I've never showed this before, but this is I'm putting my makeup on before the show. I don't wear a ton. I just have like a powder to take kind of the shine off my forehead. So I just kind of do that. I was in a... I wear a tie.
I was in a musical.
Dave?
He said, I wear a tie.
Dave. Come on.
Is that all Dave wears?
Put it over my beard a little bit.
Got about 30 people tuning in, checking out your technique.
Well, good. There we go. Guys putting on makeup, always very interesting. And I got a haircut today, so it's kind of funky, so I'm just kind of spiked it up a little bit.
What's the longest you've ever had your hair? You ever
Okay.
really let it grow out? Oh, it's
The longest I've had my hair?
Yeah.
Oh, back in the day, I lived in San Diego when I was a kid, and I kind of had like a mini mullet. Back my
Oh,
freshman
man.
year.
Pictures.
No, nobody wants to see that, trust me. Okay, so I'm going to grab my jacket. I hang my jacket over here. And, you know, like I said, the vast majority of the preparation for this show is done. I get in at 1:30 in the afternoon. We start right away with an editorial meeting. We talk about all the stories. And I feel like I have a grasp of the newscast. And we do have some interesting stories. Come over to my desk here real quick.
If you've got questions on Facebook, go ahead and type them in.
So this is my palatial desk. TV news, there aren't any offices, really, and that's good because everybody can talk and get everything together. Everybody can talk and see over the top. Carrie sits over here, John Hook sits right here. So our lead story tonight is it's called Sierra Linda Incident, and basically what happened was a student was Snapchatting that he was going to shoot up the school, and somebody in Colorado saw the Snapchat and alerted the school, and that may have averted the shooting. So that's interesting. We've got Steve Kraft working that story. Another story I think is interesting is right down here downtown is an American Legion post on Van Buren and 7th Avenue, and if you've ever driven down here to go to a Suns game or something, they have this massive American flag. You can't miss it. It flies on this huge flagpole. Well, we had that big storm on Monday night, and it just literally ripped the flag to shreds. It's like $1,500 to get one of these new flags because it's so big, and so they're trying to raise money.
And what they're seeing there right there, that's the script. That's what will be in the teleprompter later, right?
Yeah, so like right here, this is my read. So it's my name and then at Storyteller, that's a position inside in the studio. So, and it's coming out of another weather story, that's why it's kind of abrupt. But Tuesday morning, Linda Williams tweeted this photo, and we're going to have the picture up there of the huge flag outside the American Legion building on 7th Avenue in Van Buren. The flag just torn to shreds. And then Linda's going to be live and give us her story. There was one more I wanted to tell you about here. The sword burglary. So a guy comes home and finds burglars in his house,
right, and
grabs a samurai sword and holds the burglar at bay with the samurai sword until police can come and get him. So does that make him an unofficial samurai?
I guess so at that point.
So that's another good story, and Jessica Flores is on that. So I took my earpiece. This is what we call an IFB, and I have no idea what that stands for, but basically it's the piece that goes in my ear. It gets in. The producer talks to us here. This is also how we hear the reporters.
Makes you look like a Secret Service agent.
Yes, exactly. You see these with them. So I put this on. I get my jacket on. In the old days, not so long ago, but we used to have a bunch of paper scripts. And you'd always see the news anchors hold their scripts,
right,
the paper scripts. But now, we have little iPad things. This is mine. So I fire this up, all my scripts will be on here. So this is the assignment desk. Producers.
Eric Corrales, photographer.
Stephen Dave looks at Navanaugh. And I always tell people, I feel like this is really my office. This is where we do most of our work. So this is the studio. And we're counting down, so we've got about 2 minutes until we do our first update. It's live, and they just turned on sound. So I'm going to say goodbye. If you have questions about any of this stuff, hit me up when I'm done doing the newscast. We're on at 5 and 6. I will go and look at all these, and I'll talk to you guys on Facebook. So thanks for joining.
Could you use financial?
So that is a little tour from our own Troy Hayden of what it's like to be Troy Hayden prior to a newscast. Super fun. Thanks so much to him for giving us that point of view. And yeah, I thought that was a lot of fun. Thank you so much to Troy and Jeff for that. Let's go to this press conference out of Washington. I believe this was in regards to, well, actually, I'm not 100%, so I'm not going to say it because I don't want to say something wrong. But we will see together in 2 seconds.
We're actually reviewing it to determine if we believe a jury or a judge would or could, in fact, convict based on the evidence that's before us. On the chart now, you'll see a list of summary list of all of the types of materials that we received in this case and have reviewed. Early on in this incident, in fact, that very morning, when I became aware that there had been an officer-involved shooting, I did go out to the scene, and before the scene was released, was escorted through the scene by law enforcement and did a walkthrough along with Chief Criminal Deputy Andrew Toynbee, which helps us get a visual picture of the scene so that later when we're looking at evidence and reading explanations by officers and looking at photographs, it gives us a context to be able to put that into place. Otherwise, the list there is all of the things that we have looked at, including photographs, scene diagrams, witness statements, reports, all of the recorded radio traffic, which was released actually to the public early on, as well as video evidence both from the scene taken by law enforcement and also the video footage that was recovered as part of the investigation with Safeway store there. Here is the legal standard that we use when we look at a deadly force incident by a law enforcement officer. In Washington, law enforcement officers are authorized to use deadly force in the official performance of their duty, but only under certain circumstances, and it's listed here. The RCW is 9A.16.040. Basically, the focus is on whether this is force that is necessarily used to arrest or apprehend somebody who the officer has probable cause to believe has committed a felony or is committing a felony. The law also gives two considerations for officers to consider in using deadly force, and they are listed there. One is whether the suspect has actually threatened the officer or another person in a manner that could be reasonably construed as threatening by use of a weapon. And then the second one is whether there's probable cause to believe that the suspect committed a crime that involved the infliction or threatened infliction of serious physical harm. In Washington, and I talked a little bit about this at at the earlier press conference, in Washington, police officers are not to be held criminally liable for using deadly force if they act in good faith and without malice. And that is part of that same statute that I just provided you. And so in looking at these cases, that is also a consideration as whether the officer was in fact acting in good faith and without malice. In Washington, if we have a claim of self-defense, in other words, if the officer is alleging that the use of force was to defend himself or another, the burden would be on the prosecution to prove the absence of self-defense beyond a reasonable doubt if we were to file charges against that officer. And that is an important principle to understand, because the burden of proof then lies with us, not with the officer. And we are required to prove that, as I said, beyond a reasonable doubt. In this case, we really are looking at this as three individual shooting events, although they are obviously very much tied together as ongoing unfolding events. But in terms of my review and analysis, I looked at each of these shooting events separately to determine whether they were necessary and reasonable, and as I said, in good faith and without malice. And I look at that standard for each of those incidents. The first is an incident that occurred directly behind Officer Donald's patrol car. Now, I'm not going to talk in great detail about the facts. A number of the documents in this investigation have been released, and I know most of you, if not all of you, have probably already downloaded those and reviewed those as part of your ongoing coverage of this and preparation for the hearing today. But I will note that there are some key pieces of evidence that I considered in looking at these three events. First of all, right next to the area at the rear of the patrol car, detectives noticed an area of grass that appeared to have been freshly trampled by some kind of activity. And that was different than anywhere else in that area. There wasn't any other trampled area similar to that that might suggest that it was from some other source. And so there's a reasonable possibility or even probability that that would be linked to the events in this case. There were three indentation marks found in the pavement that appeared to be fresh, and the detectives appeared to be ricochet marks of rounds striking the pavement near that same area. In fact, in one of those indentations, there was a partial piece of copper, as in a copper jacket, from a bullet, which led detectives to conclude even more so that they were likely ricochets from rounds that had been fired downward at the pavement. The second incident is the use of deadly force against Mr. Chaplin. And again, without going into the significant details, Officer Donald indicated in his statement that at the point he opened fire at Mr. Chaplin had in his possession, and in fact was using in a threatening manner, a skateboard, and that he had actually raised it over his head and was pursuing or approaching Officer Donald despite the commands being given to stop. And Officer Donald said at that point then he did open fire. There are next to that, or close in proximity to that scene, shell casings that are consistent with rounds having been fired in that location, and also a skateboard directly adjacent to the area where Mr. Chaplin was ultimately treated at the scene for his injuries before he was transported to the hospital. The third event involves the use of force against Mr. Thompson. Again, with that, in that scene, we see there is an area where detectives located a handgun magazine that had been dropped to the pavement, and that still had some loaded rounds in the magazine. And then just a little further down the road from where that magazine was located, they also found another series of spent shell casings, indicating that the weapon had been fired in or around that location. So in analyzing this, I've looked at each of those three events together and individually to determine if each was justified. This is a graphical depiction of the scene produced by the Washington State Patrol crime scene analysts. I did not include this in terms of showing actual measurements or anything of that, but mainly to give you an overview of what this scene looked like in relationship to each other. At this point here, you'll see the patrol vehicle parked alongside of the road. This would be Officer Donald's patrol vehicle that had been parked along the shoulder of the road as indicated here. And then further down, this is Cooper Point Road, northbound going towards where my pointer is now. And you'll see a big group down here of different evidence markers that are indications of where other pieces of evidence were found, such as the shell casing and the magazine that I talked about earlier. And this kind of shows you the distance that exists between those two scenes, so you get some idea of the proximity of this. I've included just a very few photographs from the scene just to give you kind of a general orientation to this scene. This is a photograph of the rear of Officer Donald's patrol car. That same night, these are photographs that were actually taken by detectives when they first arrived and were documenting the scene. And of course, there's a flash with this photograph, so there's light here, but you can also see that the area around this patrol car is unlighted by any other street light or exterior lighting. And so the general proximity is relatively dark at that time of the day. And you'll recall this happened approximately in the time frame of 1 o'clock in the morning. And so this would be the area where the officers or the detectives at the scene located the ricochet marks that I described and the shell casings as well. This is now, the photographer has turned directly north and is taking a photograph looking north from the patrol vehicle into the distance. This is a little washed out because of the lighting in this room, but again, this was partially here to demonstrate the circumstances as they likely appeared to Officer Donald that particular evening. It was dark, and again, no exterior lighting going down even as far as 14th Avenue. In this photograph, again, it's a little bit washed out because of the lighting in here, but this is the area where Mr. Chaplin was located and treated for his wounds at the scene before he was transported to the hospital. There is some debris here from medical equipment that was used to intervene at the scene to get him ready to transport. That's what this material is here. But you can see in this area right here, you maybe can't see it very well, but that is the skateboard that was found in proximity to where he had fallen to the ground and was located. And this is now a photograph from the northern proximity of this scene, looking southward. Officer Donald's vehicle is in the distance down where my pointer is at this point, and this is the wooded area right in here that is described by detectives as they described the scene, as Officer Donald talked about in his statement. This little area right here is what I just showed you where Mr. Chaplin was treated before he was transported to the hospital. There's evidence markers located right in this area that mark the shell casings that I talked about earlier. This is the area here where Mr. Thompson was treated for his injuries at the scene. He was found also lying on the ground right in this location, and these evidence markers here marking shell casings that were found in the proximity of this this space here. And right somewhere in this area, there's a shell or a evidence marker that marks that partially loaded magazine that I talked about earlier. This decision, this review and this decision really came down to a close evaluation of the testimony. And in doing that, I really look at and compare the testimony given by all of the various witnesses that gave statements in this case with the physical evidence that I've described. Often we find that the accuracy and reliability of testimony can be corroborated or sometimes disputed or refuted through the examination of the physical evidence at the scene. And so I put significant weight in looking at and in comparing statements given by witnesses, including Officer Donald, to the scene itself. But there's other evidence in this case as well, and I'm going to spend just a minute talking about that. We looked at the evidence from the scene, but as I indicated, we also looked at or reviewed the radio traffic that was recorded. That's been released some time ago and has been in the public domain for some time. But I've listened to that more times than I care to count, and have done specific timing of that and exacted some times from that as well. We also looked at the injuries that were inflicted as a result of the gunshots that Officer Donald fired. I know there has been earlier reports that that one or both of these subjects, Chaplin or Thompson, had been quote-unquote shot in the back. The evidence does not support that claim, at least the evidence that's been presented to me. There was clearly one round that struck Mr. Chaplin in the chest, and that bullet traveled through his torso and was actually located and removed, protruding from his back. It did not exit his torso, but it was found and removed from his back. There was a wound that was located on his backside, and some original descriptions from the scene indicated that it appeared to be two entry wounds, and just for proximity, it would be approximately in this area. When I reviewed the medical records, what I found is that doctors actually determined that that was one bullet wound, and the two injuries that were visible, what they call communicated, which means basically it was an entry and an exit wound. So a bullet entered Mr. Chaplin in that area in the back, proceeded a short distance and then exited out the back again, which to me indicates that when the shot was fired, he was actually turned to the side and he was not shot in the back, as the previous reports might have indicated. He also received an injury to his arm, which was a through-and-through bullet injury somewhere in the area of his elbow. And so those were the injuries. Mr. Thompson received one single gunshot wound to the abdomen, and it was clearly an entry wound from the front. The bullet did not exit. There was no corresponding exit wound. So in my view, there's no question that he was shot while facing the weapon that was firing on him. And after examining all of this evidence and comparing it with Officer Donald's actually very detailed statement about the events that occurred that night, I'm convinced that the events of this night did occur substantially as he described. Now, nobody's memory is exactly perfect, and everybody perceives things a little differently. So certainly those are factors to consider. But I think an objective review of what he said combined or compared against the evidence of the scene demonstrates satisfactorily that, in fact, this did unfold substantially as he said. And in doing that, I also have compared that, as I said, to the radio traffic, where he's calling out contemporaneously things that are happening, which all seem to be consistent with his later statement, the injuries that were inflicted, and some of the testimony of the other witnesses, although there was only 2 other witnesses that claimed to have actually seen this or seen part of this happening. Many of the other witnesses who heard things gave statements that seemed consistent with an officer giving commands in between hearing shots fired. The other thing about this that I want to say is that right now there is really no reliable evidence to the contrary of what Mr. Donald has said. The statements given by both Mr. Thompson and Mr. Chaplin were short, abbreviated, and appeared to me to be incomplete, and provided really very little detail about the events of that evening. I will say that as part of our review, we did reach back out to them through their lawyer. We were in direct contact with their lawyer and offered them the opportunity to provide a more complete statement if they wish to do that, and that offer was declined. And so at this point, my review is really limited to the evidence that I have, without speculation as to what Mr. Chaplin or Mr. Thompson might say if they had taken advantage of that opportunity. There's a note in my memorandum that also recognizes the fact that that is very much their constitutional right. I don't have the ability to compel them to give a statement in this regard, and I've not considered the fact that they did give a statement as evidence of their wrongdoing or guilt in any particular way. Lastly, there are statements given by Mr. Chaplin's and Mr. Thompson's sister, who I'll refer to as Jasmine, just to keep it easy to follow, and her roommate and or boyfriend, Antonio. And I'm just going to use their first names to describe how I've looked at their testimony. Coincidentally, it appears to me, because they had no idea that these events were unfolding even by their own admission, but coincidentally they drove by this scene as a portion of it was happening. Now, they give some contradictory statements to each other about how they got there and the path that they took, and that's explained in a little bit more detail in my memo. But there is inconsistencies between the versions that they give that is noteworthy in my review of this case. But there are a few consistencies as well. For instance, both describe seeing an officer, an Olympia police officer, with a man at gunpoint who was wearing a white shirt. That would be consistent with even Officer Donald's description of having Mr. Thompson at gunpoint as Mr. Thompson was advancing on him. Antonio describes Mr. Thompson, or describes the man in the white shirt, I should say, as advancing on the officer. Jasmine describes the event as the officer advancing on the man in the white shirt. And so they are in conflict in that fact. And it is very clear, and they basically drove by this scene, stopped momentarily, and then proceeded on. And so it's clear they witnessed only a short segment of what was happening through this entire time. After looking at that, I do have serious concerns about the reliability of that testimony. Jasmine, by her admission, had been treated at the hospital and had received some medication and had been resting in the car. It's a possibility that could have influenced her ability to observe or remember. I'm not concluding that necessarily. But I would say that there are concerns about the accuracy and reliability, although I am convinced that, in fact, they did drive by this scene as it was happening, and they did witness something of the events. At the end of the review, however, there's not enough evidence from those two witnesses alone to sufficiently contradict Officer Donald's statement enough where I could conclude that he wasn't justified in using deadly force in this case, or that he was somehow acting unlawfully. And so after this review, I've finalized this with the following conclusions. And the first thing I want to emphasize is that I am satisfied, beyond a reasonable doubt, frankly, that this shooting did not occur as a result of the allegations that Mr. Chaplin and or Mr. Thompson stole beer and assaulted the Safeway clerk. And I want to make it very clear that while those two things have been put together in terms of how this case has been talked about, that they were shot after doing these things, they are really unrelated events and unconnected in my mind. As I said, I am convinced that the events happened substantially as Officer Donald has described. And I'm convinced that but for the hostile acts of Mr. Chaplin and Mr. Thompson, these shootings would not have occurred. In other words, I believe Officer Thompson, or Officer Donald, I should say, was acting in good faith and had an actual good faith fear that he was being assaulted and that he could suffer serious injury as a result of that assault. And for that reason, I've concluded in my review that each of the shooting incidents that I've described are justified under the statute that I look at in my review. I want to emphasize that my review is not for the purposes of making conclusions about civil liability, and it is not for the purpose of reviewing any policy that might exist at the Olympia Police Department about use of force. That will be something that will be done by the Olympia Police Department following my conclusion of my review. And as I said, I'm convinced that Officer Donald in fact acted without malice. I don't find any evidence at all that he had a malicious intent or an unlawful intent at the time that he used this force. And I'm also convinced that in his mind, he did have a good faith justification to use the force when he did. In addition, referring back to that standard in my first slide, I am convinced, however, that the evidence supports that a reasonable fact finder, judge or jury, could find Mr. Chaplin or Mr. Thompson guilty of the crime of assault in the second degree against Officer Donald, and possibly of assault against the employee at the Safeway store that was the originating call for this incident. And as such, my office today did file formal charges against Mr. Chaplin and Mr. Thompson for those events. I believe that copies of the charging documents will also be available to you at the conclusion of this conference today. And we have issued summonses. We did not seek arrest warrants given the circumstances of this case. We have elected to issue summons for them to appear in court on Tuesday, September 22nd for arraignment, and then the case will proceed through the normal criminal justice process at that point. So with that, I would be willing to open this up for questions.
Just a clarification about the charges.
Yes.
The assault of the Safeway employee was by one individual, so I imagine the charge would be...
Yes, I'm glad you made that clarification. Only Mr. Chaplin has been charged with that as a what we call an assault in the fourth degree. Thank you for asking that question.
But both have been charged with second-degree assault?
Yes, and actually both were charged with 2 counts of second-degree assault. One for the events occurring behind the patrol car, and then the second for the events occurring down by the wooded area on Cooper Point.
You found that the shootings were justified. Were there any concerns raised by this investigation on how this was handled, how the officer responded, whether he should have waited for backup? I mean, any of that discussion had during this time?
not really a discussion within my office because, again, that's not really my area to review. There are policies and procedures within the Olympia Police Department, as in any department, that officers are directed to follow in handling situations like that. I can't comment as to whether any of those policies were violated, and that was not part of our discussion. Our review is focused solely on whether there was criminal wrongdoing here or criminal liability.
Can you explain why, and I believe it's Thompson, who was unarmed, didn't have an skateboard or anything in his hand, when he advanced on Officer Donald, why you found Officer Donald justified in that case to shoot?
Yes. Based on a few circumstances. Now, while I did separate these, they are part of a total incident. And I need to emphasize here that this entire incident, from the back of the patrol car to the last shots fired, is just over 3 minutes. So this is a rapidly unfolding scene. As Officer Donald described this, Mr. Thompson and Mr. Chaplin were actually both approaching him at the point where he elected to open fire on Mr. Chaplin. He focused on Mr. Chaplin first, he indicated, because he was closest and he was the most prominent threat because he had the skateboard. But very soon after that, after Mr. Chaplin had dropped to the ground and Mr. Thompson had momentarily attended to him, Officer Donald describes that Mr. Thompson became very enraged and began advancing on him immediately at a relatively close proximity. Less lethal use of force devices, such as a taser, are really designed to be used when there is some distance between the officer and the subject, and at that point would have required, in my view, Officer Donald to shift from his handgun to his taser, which I don't believe he had reasonable time to do. The other factor here is that Officer Donald describes very specifically that Mr. Thompson seemed to be focused on, his attention was focused on the officer's handgun. And the officer was very concerned at that point that Mr. Thompson would be attempting to incapacitate him and or remove his handgun, take control of his handgun from him. Now, Officer Donald indicated he waited as long as he felt he possibly could, giving commands during that time for Mr. Thompson to stop. But when he didn't, and they were actually were fired, Officer Donald indicated that his primary fear was that his handgun could be taken away from him and used against him, and I find that that was reasonable under the circumstances.
So you didn't determine if there was any opportunity for Officer Donald to de-escalate the situation between the first shooting and the later sets of shootings?
That's not really my review, is whether there's an opportunity to de-escalate. My review is about whether there was a good faith fear and a lack of malice, as I've said, a lack of malice on the part of the officer. Yes. You know, my hope is that there is not. I've lived in this community for a number of years now. I think Olympia and Thurston County is a community that has a lot of investment in the issues that are involved in this case. Issues around social justice, use of force, proper policing, all of those things. I think those are strong interests of the community. But on the other hand, I believe the community is very thoughtful and believes in the appropriateness of peacefully expressing opinions and voices in order to make change. I really hope that's the route that they choose to take.
Did race play a factor?
There's no finding on my part that race was a factor in this, other than I would say that it was initially part of the description that was given, and so Officer Donald obviously considered that in determining whether he had reasonable suspicion to make contact with these two young men.
Chris Bennett from the Seattle Medium Regional Radio Station. Now, our information is that the community was indeed outraged at this shooting of these two young men in the back. And of course, this time they are alive to tell their story. And their story is contrary to what we are hearing from the investigators report. My question to you, sir, is were the young man who was shot 5 times, I believe, in the back, was he backing toward the officer or running away from him? If he was backing, I can understand toward them, I can understand how he get shot. And the one that was shot slightly on his heart, he was shot from the front. Is that correct?
Yes, and let me correct a couple of the things that you've said in terms of the version of events that you've given. Now, you came in after I had done my kind of factual summary of the case.
I'm sorry, I apologize. I couldn't tell that it was kind of difficult to find this press conference.
Yes.
In one urban area.
Yes. So I said earlier, I did not find any evidence that, in fact, either of these two individuals were shot in the back. There is no injury that would be consistent with that. The injury to the back, there were two injuries to the back that, when examined by medical personnel, were determined to, and the term I used was communicate. That's the term that the medical professionals used. They communicated with each other, meaning one was entrance, one was exit. So a bullet penetrated from the side, traveled a short distance along Mr. Chaplin's backside, and then exited out again his backside. My conclusion from that is that at that point, when the shot was fired, he had his side to the weapon. Now, where that occurred, I can't determine. The evidence doesn't help me determine that. That could have been inflicted during the incident behind the patrol car. It could have been inflicted if Mr. Chaplin's reaction to the gunfire was to turn away from the weapon. But either way, I'm convinced that he did not have his back to the officer when the shots were fired. I've got a question over here. I concluded that Mr. Chaplin, in fact, was armed, that the skateboard in the way that it was used would be considered a deadly weapon under Washington law. Excuse me, I need to go to the gentleman here.
Should you treat this investigation any differently, given the sensitive nature, given the violence that followed the original incident, or did you treat this exactly the same as you would any other case like this?
Our process really was very much the same. Because, and I'll say this very definitively, we take every deadly use of force by an officer seriously. And we've reviewed several over the years, and several of which have actually resulted in death. So they've been looked at as homicide reviews. And every one of those, there's an incredibly detailed investigation that's conducted. And we take a considerable amount of time to go through that and to weigh the evidence. So I feel like this case was treated exactly the same, but I say that putting an emphasis on the fact that that means we did as thorough of a review as we could do with the evidence that we had. Yes, sir, in the back.
You mentioned to me this is a complex case, but you know people at home know this as another case of a white officer shooting two black men who do not have handguns on them, started to shoplifting. How do you cut through all of that and explain to folks at home why this officer is justified?
Yes, that's a great question. So this is the start of that. My giving you the explanation, as well as giving you all the memorandum that I've issued that does the detailed analysis. My hope is that this community will take the time to really learn the facts and the evidence of this event, and to be able to look at it with the same kind of eye that I looked at it with, and the same evidence that I looked at. Now, maybe they'll agree with my conclusion, and maybe they won't. But all I can do is to try to be as transparent as possible about what my view of the facts were and why I reached the decision that I reached. And it'll be up to the community to debate whether that was appropriate or not. And so my goal at this point now is to be, as I said, transparent as possible to allow people to make their own reasoned judgment about what happened.
It sounds like what you're also saying is that generally and specifically in this case, an unarmed person can be justifiably shot by the police.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There are, as long as the officer, as I said, genuinely feels that there is an imminent threat of substantial bodily injury and is acting without malice. I think it's fair for me to say that if you put yourselves in the place of a police officer who's on the street in a situation like this, in the middle of the night when it's dark, facing two individuals, regardless of race, but two individuals, and then is immediately physically gets in a physical altercation with the skateboard the way that it was used, an officer, a police officer, really cannot afford to lose that fight, to just put it bluntly. Because officers are armed, and I talk about this in my memo, because officers are armed, they cannot afford to lose a fight and lose control of their own weapon, and they cannot risk allowing themselves to become vulnerable to serious bodily injury or even being killed. Now, in this case, I really do take issue with the phrase unarmed, because the skateboard, as it was used in this case, I think, was very much a deadly weapon. And if, in fact, Officer Donald had not taken the action that he did on the first incident behind the patrol car, I believe he was at serious risk of being seriously injured because that skateboard could have struck him in a way to render him incapacitated, unconscious, or something of that nature, and then he becomes vulnerable to whatever might happen next.
But Officer Donald could have waited for backup before confronting the two men.
I guess he could have. That's speculation to say that he could have waited. Again, that's not really relevant to my consideration because I'm focused only on what was happening at the moment that he made the decision to use deadly force. And I want to emphasize again, whether he followed department policy and procedure, that is for a different time and place, and that is not something that is within my jurisdiction, if you will.
I have one final question for you, sir. Has the governor, since this happened in his backyard, has he been briefed on this, and are you required to have permits to carry skateboards as weapons?
Okay, so your question is whether you need a permit to carry a skateboard?
My first question was, has Governor Inslee been briefed, since this happened in his back door, been briefed on this proceeding, your decision, and are skateboards in Thurston County, people who carry are required to have them registered as weapons?
The answer to your question is no. I have not personally talked to Governor Inslee on this, and frankly, the governor rarely, if ever, gets briefed on officer-involved shootings. And I can't speak beyond that because I don't work in the governor's office. But I have not talked personally to the governor about this, and if I'm invited to do so, I'd be happy to do so.
Looks like we might have temporarily lost our feed. There we go.
Gun is not the only kind of weapon. Under Washington law, and this is explained in my memorandum, under Washington law, whether something is defined as a deadly weapon is defined by not what it is, but how it's used. And in this instance, I believe that the way the skateboard was used did render it a deadly weapon. I thought there was one more question.
Momentarily lost our feed.
You know, I didn't detect anything in his statement that gave me the inference or concern that that was racially based. I took that as a description of what he was observing in terms of the manner of this person and just the demeanor as he began to approach him. All right. Thank you, everybody. Ann's going to wrap this up, and she'll talk a little bit more about if there's any requests for individual interviews. Thank you.
So thank you all for coming. I do have packets of information here with
And that is where we lose that press conference out of Washington. We've got 10 minutes left in the show. I know that I've seen Troy Hayden and Kari Lake running around here organizing our 9 o'clock broadcast. John Hook is currently out, so Troy Hayden will be co-anchoring with Kari Lake. So that's exciting. We love watching those two together. You heard Troy earlier talking about the buzz. Him and Kari are going to have to comment on the fake pregnancy website. You know that's going to get really interesting. And before I let you go, let's complete. Here we are. Let's complete our 5 p.m. news recap. These are some of the videos from our 5 p.m. broadcast.
There is a former state employee, a man working for us, is arrested at his home. Officers surprising the suspect. I mean, really surprising him because he was arrested with no clothes on, taken into custody, and then given clothes while sitting in the back of a police SUV. The man's accused of embezzling more than $1 million while working for the state's Medicaid program. Andrew has been on this story. That's a lot of money, Andrew.
It sure is, Troy. He was a top official at Access, which is the state's Medicaid program. He was arrested this morning and brought here to the 4th Avenue jail. He's accused of defrauding the state out of $1.5 million over a period of about 10 years. 63-year-old Michael Veet worked for the state for 35 years. He was recently fired from his job as chief procurement officer for Access. According to the Attorney General's office, Access's own Inspector General noticed some irregularities and turned his findings over to investigators.
There's bad people out there that do bad things. Sometimes they work for the government. Anytime those allegations are made to the Attorney General's office, we take immediate action.
Special agents with the AG's office served search warrants at 4 locations, 3 in Phoenix and 1 in Surprise, including Veet's North Phoenix home near 7th Street and Thunderbird. Investigators won't release details about how they believe he defrauded the state of $1.5 million, but they say it all began back in 2006.
Any amount is too much, and we have a responsibility as the Attorney General's office and in state government to keep these people and hold these people accountable.
In addition to the longtime state employee, investigators also arrested 67-year-old Michael Cameron. Cameron is not a state employee, but is believed to be involved in the alleged scheme. In a statement, Governor Doug Ducey said, "Let this be a wake-up call to any state employee who tries to cheat the system and exploit our taxpayers for personal gain. Not on our watch. Actions that violate the law or the public's trust in their government will not be tolerated." And while he spent 35 years with the state, he spent 27 of those 35 years working for Access. He was fired on August 18th after an initial investigation. But this investigation, according to the AG's office, is not over, and more arrests could be coming. Reporting live in downtown Phoenix, I'm Andrew Hasbun, Fox 10 News.
Good Samaritan was awarded today for helping a state trooper. That trooper was attacked by an armed suspect after he tried to help him with what looked like car trouble. Courtney Griffin has more on how a DirecTV employee really came to the rescue.
Meeting again, but this time on happier terms. DirecTV employee Frank Modica was in the right place at the right time when Department of Public Safety trooper Brian Clark needed him.
You know, there are people out there that are willing to stop and put themselves at risk to help law enforcement. Right now, things are very, very tough in the law enforcement field. And when you get a good Samaritan that stops out, it's a good thing.
And Frank now being called a hero and awarded with this plaque to honor him for his bravery.
I was in a critical incident involving a shooting, and while I was in the fight with this subject, DirecTV personnel stopped out to help me out.
The incident happened back on July 29th. Trooper Clark pulled off along I-10 to help a man whose white car was in the median. After approaching the man to see if he needed help, the man started to attack the trooper and grabbed his gun from his holster. The man pulled the trigger, but the bullet didn't hit anyone. Shortly after, Frank, one of the hundreds of people driving down the interstate, pulled over to help the trooper.
He asked me, "Officer, can I give you a hand?" And I said, "Yes, please get this guy off of me." And he did.
2 other troopers arrived and used a taser to get the man under control. Frank continued to help until the man was taken into custody.
If it wasn't for him, the situation could have drastically gone bad.
Trooper Clark says Frank's actions have restored his faith in humanity.
I am very lucky thanks to people like Frank.
In Phoenix, Courtney Griffin, Fox 10 News.
DirecTV wouldn't allow Frank to speak with us on camera, but he says he was very thankful for the overwhelming support and the award he got today.
Sweet, and I think I love when we get to have moments with Courtney here on the show. I definitely don't get to have as many moments with Courtney on the show because she works mornings and I work night side. But I think she's such a great reporter, and I admire what she does. Just to give you a recap of some of our Fox 10 Phoenix headlines.
I'm Carrie Lake with a look at your Fox 10 Facebook news update. A fired state employee naked and handcuffed outside of his North Phoenix home, and only Fox 10 cameras were there as he was arrested. He's accused of embezzling at least $1.5 million from the state of Arizona as early as 2006. Deputies took him into custody during an MCSO raid at 2 locations. In a statement, Governor Doug Ducey said, quote, "Let this be a wake-up call to any state employee who tries to cheat the system and exploit our taxpayers for personal gain. Not on our watch." 2 teenagers apparently picked the wrong home to break into in the Santan Valley. They were stopped by the homeowner on Saturday, who was armed with a sword. He kept a 15-year-old from leaving. Deputies took that teen into custody, and they later found a 16-year-old with items taken from the home. DPS investigators say they've gotten dozens of tips about 4 vehicles shot at Saturday and Monday along I-10, the agency working to develop leads on the person responsible. Tips can be made through the DPS website. The National Weather Service saying we could be in for more storm activity tonight and tomorrow following that severe storm that caused so much damage on Monday and has left people still without power. And be sure to follow us on social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and send us your photos and videos using the hashtag Fox10Phoenix. Have a great day.
I wonder if I have the story of the sword. I don't know why I wouldn't. Let me see. Dave Muncie's watching High School Musical starring Zac Efron right now. That's what I just overheard. You can't get this kind of sincerity on real television. That's why you need the internet. Dave Muncie's watching Zac Efron right now, and I wish I was. I love Zac Efron. Get your head in the game. Gotta get your head in the game. That's a High School Musical lyric. Do I have the sword story?
Should be Pat? Okay. Let's hope so.
I do. Thank you.
What kind of sword do you have, sir?
I have a samurai sword.
Okay.
Razor sharp.
Everything's still calm, right? You still don't...
Yeah, everything's calm.
Million uses for a samurai sword. A Valley man stops a burglary in process using a samurai sword. This happened over the weekend in the Santan Valley.
And tonight that homeowner is speaking with our Jessica Flores. And is he trained with the sword? Is he like an honorary samurai now? What's the deal?
No, he's definitely not trained. It was just a gift. And he tells me that he came home from work in the early morning hours to find the suspects inside his home. So he went for the only thing he could think of, the only weapon in his house. It was the Christmas gift from his wife hanging on his wall.
It's a sword fit for a samurai warrior, or in this Santan Valley homeowner's case, just the weapon to catch a suspected thief in the act.
I set him down on the couch and I said, do you have a weapon? He said, I have a pocket knife. I just pulled this off the wall, took it out of the sheath and laid it on my shoulder and said, okay, I'm calling 911.
Dan's weapon, a katana, a type of samurai sword, and his 911 call
911, what's the location of your emergency?
in this Arizona desert town unusual to say the least, even for a dispatcher who's heard it all.
What are you doing to prevent him from leaving?
I've got a sword in my hand.
A sword?
A sword. Will you send somebody over here right away and take this booger out of my house?
Pinal County Sheriff's deputies arrested the 15-year-old boy, later arresting another suspect, a 16-year-old boy, who was allegedly hiding upstairs and ran off before deputies arrived. Deputies say they recovered the teen's backpack with burglary tools inside and about $900 worth of stolen items.
No one's injured, right?
Nobody's injured.
Just a moment.
We're calm. I'm just upset.
Now that it's over, Dan hopes he can hang his katana in its proper place and leave the sword fighting to the samurai.
I would have felt very bad if they'd broken in somebody else's house and they had a gun and shot him. I mean, they're 16 and 15 years old. They made a mistake, and that's all.
And no one was hurt in the incident. Both teenagers were booked into Pinal County Jail for burglary and possession of burglary tools. Reporting live, I'm Jessica Flores, Fox 10 News.
Well, that's not something that you report on every day. Interesting, and I really like the way whoever edited that was cute. I liked it's a tough story, but the way that it was edited, I liked the music and everything. It is 9 o'clock, and I'm looking at my screen anxiously awaiting Tori Hayden and Carrie Lake to bring us our 9 p.m. broadcast. We broadcast from our website, fox10phoenix.com, as well as Channel 10 if you're local to Phoenix. You can download our app. It's free. I've been told one of the best ways to actually stream our content on your cell phone, your iPad, your laptop. So, actually, I don't know if you can have an app on your laptop. I'm not that tech savvy. But you should download our app because it's free to your cell phone or to your iPad or tablet. And follow us on Twitter and like us on Facebook because we like you. I will be back tomorrow, and I look forward to another exciting Fox 10 News Now with you on Thursday. Thanks so much for spending your evening with me. We appreciate you, and we'll see you again soon. Bye.